Operation Harsh Doorstop is a flawed game. Now, don't get me wrong, it's fun and actually quite interesting as a mod development platform. However, the base game itself is really only interesting for all of 5 minutes. Though, before we take a deeper dive into the game, let's backtrack and take a look at what the game itself is. Operation Harsh Doorstop is a free and donation-funded tactical first-person shooter. The game was developed by Drakeling Labs, which is led by the YouTuber BlueDrake42. The game aims to be more of a modding platform, similar to Gary's mod, and in that regard, it is a success in my opinion. However, I believe that the base game still needs more content. While playing the game to get a feel for it, I found myself bored after only about 15 minutes. But I decided to take a look at what the game really has to offer through its modding platform use, and so I used the Steam Workshop and I downloaded some mods. The first mod that I downloaded was the Plastic Factions mod by Sergeant Samples. While I didn't originally have high expectations for this mod, or in reality this game, when I finally decided to end my game that I had started with Plastic Factions, I had found that I had somehow managed to lose track of time. I had gone through over an hour and a half of playing on just this one mod. Meanwhile, I was meant to only spend an hour and a half playing the game in general. So, it's a bit of a mixed bag with this game. I didn't originally go into it expecting a lot. When I originally started the base game, I actually wound up still expecting not a whole lot, but now that I've seen what the modding community can do for this game, I'm really impressed. I was even more impressed by the next mod I tried, which was the Star Wars Total Conversion mod by G-Man. This was by far my favorite mod. It really felt like I was shooting separatist droids on Tatooine with a clone invasion force. I wound up playing this version of the mod for far longer than I should have. Actually, much longer than I should have. Which really shows what the mods can do for this game and a user's enjoyment. And the third and final mod that I downloaded for use with the game was the Delta Force mod. This added several more new characters and allowed for a new gameplay loop, one with more stealth and tactics available that made the game somehow more immersive in its own right. So I was really impressed with the mods of this game. However, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows playing Operation Harsh Doorstop, even with the mods. At first, I was satisfied with the amount of options that were present in the UI, but over time I grew tired of a seeming lack of any real customization available, or actually, I grew tired of the lack of usability of the menu itself. While it's not a bad thing to have a simple UI, sometimes being too simple can lead to confusion. For example, during my first couple games, I was curious as to why some of the AI was able to have weapons that I couldn't. Then I found that there was a tiny scroll bar on the side of the character selection screen that allowed you to scroll down and select different classes. Now, because of the way that the system is formatted, it doesn't show a preview of anything that might be below it, leading, for me to at least think, that I had a much more limited selection of weapons and armor than the AI. On the subject of the AI is the biggest group of, I guess you would say, smart idiots out of almost all the bots I have ever seen in a video game. Somehow able to predict your exact position through a smokescreen, but incapable of moving 4 feet in front of them without somehow getting confused or stuck on the terrain. They are stupid geniuses. Though, with everything in this game, we have to remember that this is still a work in progress, and over time, most likely mods will be able to come along and replace the AI to maybe give it varying difficulties, or have it perform much more stealthy maneuvers, and in general, just be a better system. Speaking of bizarre movement and getting stuck on terrain, I just could not stand the way movement is handled in this game. Now, while there are much worse movements, setups in video games, I just found that this one was so close to being good that the fact that it just didn't work right was the most frustrating bit of it all. I mean, we would go from being able to move perfectly to somehow not being able to jump, despite having the full amount of stamina and the necessary, I guess, I don't know, the jump meter is, I guess, what you could call it. It was still full. And sometimes not being able to stand up from a crouched position to not being able to just walk forward. On the subject of broken mechanics, reloading and healing are two that I had major gripes with. Well, I obviously don't understand the full ins and outs of game development. I do think that these basic features need to be fixed at random points. I mean, in the middle of a scenario that I would really need to heal in. Let's say I was pinned down behind a building at almost dead. I just need that tiny med kit and boom, I can be back in the fight, ready to take on whatever's going on. But I can't heal, and I'm stuck. And then it's over. I'm out. The same thing happens several times with reloading. I mean, you'd be in the middle of a firefight, you need to reload, and it's just stuck. Boom. You are not reloading, you're not going anywhere. And so, well, I do understand, and I have to reiterate that this game is still in development, and so there are going to be bugs, there are going to be some things, the kinks that aren't worked out yet. But I feel like these need to be fixed before even mods can begin being developed for it, because what's the point of modding a game that's foundation is fundamentally flawed? So, while this game had my attention for several hours, and quite frankly it had it for several more hours than it should have for productivity's sake, I think that without mods, I wouldn't have found the game as enjoyable. I mean, I probably would have found it about as enjoyable as math class. Okay for the first about 5 minutes, and then extraordinarily boring. So, would I recommend the base game? No. Would I recommend the base game and putting and combining it with mods? Definitely. I think that it is a great platform, and it has a ton of great content if you are willing to make it, and if you are willing to use what the community has made. I mean, I do think that the movement AI and the base game content need just a little bit more work. I really do think it could be an almost perfect game. There's multiplayer servers that you can join. You can host your own multiplayer server. I mean, the single-player campaign is my main gripe about base content. But even then, it's still enough to keep you satisfied. Though, I will say, on the multiplayer servers, there is no anti-cheat, so be aware of that. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is GenericBoyle115, and I'll see you all in the next episode.